Hi and welcome to lesson 7, altering rows and columns. So what do I mean by altering rows and columns? Well, let's have a look at the situation. I've selected cell D10 and I'm just going to press a few keys on my keyboard. Notice that the cell contents can go beyond the cell. So when I press enter, the contents of cell D10 now extend into E10. And if I then put some data into cell E10, it cuts short or concatenates cell D. It trims it off. The data's still there. Here's the formula bar, by the way. The formula bar is showing us what data is in that cell. So I can see, if I look at the cell here, I can see it's got FFFG at the end. But if I actually click on the cell, I can see that it's FFFG, FHG, and so on. So there's a lot more I can see there. So if I click on an active, if I make a cell active, then I can see the content of that within the formula bar, which you might say to yourself, well, okay, that's quite useful if it extends too far, but I can see the contents. That becomes much more clear later on. So we're looking here, we've got the contents there and they overlap. So what could I do about that? Well, I could click on there, as we learnt in the last lesson, to make that the active column. I don't actually have to do that, but it marks out what I'm trying to do. And then between the cell column D and column E, there is a line. And if I move my mouse just over top of it, I can see that the arrow that's pointing downwards, which says select column E or select column D, I can move it between and it suddenly changes to an arrow pointing both directions. Click, hold the mouse button down, drag towards the side, and you'll notice there's a new box appeared, width 11.43 and in brackets 85 pixels, and simply keep extending it, let go, and you can start to see more and more of the contents. Take a little bit further and I can see the whole of the contents. Now I'm going to take that back. So I'm roughly where I was before. I don't have to have selected that column to do so. I can do that anyway. So it doesn't have to be the active column that is selected. I can alter the column even if it's not the active one. Trying to judge roughly where it is can be a bit annoying. Let's take that back again. There's another trick. This time, go between the two cells again, exactly as we've been doing. Just go between them and then double click. That means click with the left hand mouse button rapidly twice. 1, 2. And it's auto fitted the column to the data. If I do it to E, go between them and double click, it's moved marginally. If I put the word cat, I held down the caps lock by accident there, but that's alright, we can work with that. And if I now go before F, it will reduce the size of it. Notice, by the way, that if I want to make this cell wider, if I want to make column D wider because the contents are tight there, I have to go to the line after it. Going before makes no sense. Going after makes it wider to it. So I can alter the columns either by selecting the boundary and widening, or by double clicking to fit the data. What if I selected a selection? What if I now altered a selection of columns? What if I decided to alter just column H while I've got D to J selected? Let's just see. I'm going to move that. Now I'm going to be looking at that box that's appeared. I'm holding the left hand mouse button down and I'm looking at that box, and notice I've got two numbers at the moment, 9.86 and then 74 pixels. Pixels are the smallest definable point on the screen. It's a dot. Now what a dot is, it's the smallest dot your screen can talk to. It's the smallest dot your computer can alter in any way, shape or form. Your screen is defined by pixels. how many pixels along by how many down. The other number is how many characters can fit in. If you remember with the D1, it cut it off slightly. So 9.86 is wide enough to have almost 10 characters appear. That 9.86 is pretty useless at most times, but pixels is really useful. So let's focus on that. Let's take this to 100 pixels. There it is. Now I'm going to let go. It's not just altered the H column to 100 pixels, it's altered the selection to 100 pixels. So if I choose a selection and I alter the width, then yes, I do have to make sure it's one of the ones that is selected, doesn't matter which one. It will apply whatever I do. Let's make them smaller, let's take it down to 50. And it's altered them all to 50. So I can alter a selection of columns. And obviously if I can do that to columns, I must be able to do that to rows. Again, this time it's the midpoint between two rows, and if I've done a selection, I need to make sure it's within that selection, but let's take that to 48 and let go, and there it is. If I want to double click, by the way, it will pull them back to auto fit the cells to fit the data that's in there, and since I've only got this data, it auto fits the default size. I don't have to select, and I can choose any any row, and I can alter it as I want and double click. So I can do that. So selecting a column will allow me to alter its width. I can alter the width without selecting, but if I select a range, it allows me to alter that range to the same width, keeping them uniform. And the same is true for rows. And again, it doesn't matter as long as it's selected range, as long as I go between two of the selected rows, or even at the end, it's perfectly happy. No point in going before. That doesn't tell Excel anything. If I do that, it will alter row 1. So, what about altering the entire sheet? Well, again, when we talked about selecting the cells, we know we could click on a hold down shift and then go all the way to ZFD or whatever it is, but that's a long way away. That's 2.5 million cells away. So what we're going to do instead is, instead of doing that, do you remember the button there? If I click on the button there, I now have selected the entire sheet. Now I can select the column width. Let's put this to 80. And the entire sheet has a column width of 80. Every single column in this entire sheet is now set to 80 pixels wide. And if I alter the rows, and let's move this to 40, every single row on this sheet is now set to 40 pixels. So I can control the entire sheet by using this button that doesn't look like a button. Have I altered the other sheet? No. All I'm altering is this one sheet. So I can alter this quite happily simply by clicking there and altering this. Let's now take that to 60. Or doing the same there. I can not click anywhere and just alter a single column or a single row or a selection of columns and a selection of rows. If I double click, then it auto fits to the data, and if I take there and double click, it will auto fit to the data in each column. Hopefully that's been useful. Hopefully that makes sense, and you can see now that it's quite nice when you've got a lot of different data of differing widths. Simply selecting the columns of interest and double clicking will make the data fit to suit the data that's contained in the cells. Okay, so in the next lesson we're going to be looking at borders. Again, that might not make any sense at the moment, but in the next video it will make complete sense. See you there.